So in this segment, we're going to be talking about some of the Telegraph articles about Brexit, and some of these are just really bad. So yeah, we'll just go through each one, separate videos, and just kind of try and analyse them as best we can. So this person here, Martin Howe, saying overriding the Northern Ireland Protocol would be entirely legitimate, which we know is simply not the case, because if it was, the government would have done it by now, and it would be going to the courts, or it would have gone to the courts by now. So he says, no sovereign state should tolerate part of its territory being subject to foreign laws, and nor should the United Kingdom, except the United Kingdom agreed to this. The protocol is very clear. We're going to be talking about a separate article in which a former Stormont official criticised the UK's criticised the UK's attitude over the Northern Ireland Protocol, because the simple fact is the UK knew this going in, and we'll talk about this article soon. Saying next week there will be elections in Northern Ireland Assembly at the same time, so it won't be next week, it'll be in a few days really. May 5th, I think, elections are happening. These polls will bring to the force the increasingly dire state of politics in Northern Ireland. Accepting some miracle, is likely that the Northern Irish executive will remain collapsed for the indefinite future, and that's because the DUP will refuse to take their seats in Stormont, which means Stormont can't operate without a First Minister and a Deputy First Minister, as far as I know of. And the fact is, Sinn Féin have taken the role of the kind of second kind of largest nationalist party, and the DUP were happy to take their seats once they were the predominant party, the First Minister party, but now it's flipped. They don't believe in democracy anymore. What's up with that, guys? So accepting some miracle is likely to say collapse. The root of the problem is the Northern Ireland Protocol. The root of the problem is Brexit. Because even this person notes, right, the root of the problem is the protocol, which is part of the withdrawal agreement with the EU. And the withdrawal agreement was needed for Brexit to happen. So really, the problem is Brexit. Let's be honest here. It should not be confused with the later Trade and Cooperation Agreement, which regulates trade between GB and the EU. But the thing is, right, we would not have gotten the Trade and Cooperation Agreement without the Northern Ireland Protocol, without the Withdrawal Agreement. And if the Northern Ireland Protocol goes, the TCA will go with it. So you can see this writer trying to be tricksy, but it's not going to work. Saying, because he's going to say, right, we get rid of the Northern Ireland Protocol, but we keep the TCA, right? It's not going to happen. One is designed to protect the other, in a sense. The protocol is meant to protect the Good Friday Agreement and peace in Northern Ireland, which it has done. The only ones that are causing trouble are the unionists, the desperate unionists, and their ilk. Unfortunately, it increasingly has the exact opposite effect by creating barriers within the United Kingdom between Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and forcing the people of Northern Ireland to live in EU laws, which I don't think they're too fussed about. The Northern Ireland Protocol, I think it's above 50% popularity. Find me how many politicians are above 50%. Which neither they nor the Westminster Parliament have any say, which is not true. There will be a consent vote in Stormont in 2024, and Westminster does have a say over it. If Westminster went for an alignment deal, we wouldn't face as many problems as we are. So it's simply ridiculous, especially when Westminster does govern parts of Northern Ireland still. It was up to us what to give up, and we chose to give these things up. Under the protocol, large swaths of EU laws, basically all relating to the single market in goods or to customs, so services are exempt. So we have control over those. VAT and indirect taxes and state aid continues to apply inside Northern Ireland, even though the UK has left the EU and its single market, which is obvious because Northern Ireland is a part of the EU single market and customs union for goods. So obviously the EU rules are going to apply there. Otherwise, you just cause absolute chaos. It wouldn't make sense. Those laws must be kept up to date with changes made by the EU, which makes sense. This results in hundreds of changes a year being imposed on Northern Ireland. Do the EU make that many changes a year? I genuinely don't think they do. And anything they do is announced really far ahead of time. The EU Commission and the ECJ interpret and enforce those laws, which is what the UK accepted at the time. And the EU Parliament as well, with the Commission having the right under the protocol to send in officials to oversee and inspect how they are being applied. What would you rather happen? Obviously they were going to be able to send people in to see, are the checks being done properly? What's going on? Are there any issues? Are you guys dumb? Checks on the movement of goods within this country between GB and NI are a serious and important problem. They're not that big a problem. But having a foreign system of law applying within Northern Ireland, which voters there cannot change, which is true that the people of Northern Ireland don't have a direct say over the changes. However, Northern Ireland accepts Westminster controls Northern Ireland. It was Westminster that accepted these terms. So overall, if you want Northern Ireland to stay in the Union, it gives Westminster absolute control pretty much, and this is a result of it, and which will progressively diverge from UK law. So talking about the Northern Ireland diverging from UK law when it will be the UK diverging from EU law, really. This is a fundamental problem of democracy, and is actually the cause of the unwanted Irish sea border. The reason why we need the Irish sea border is because the UK didn't want to stay a part of the EU single market and customs union for goods. That was the main problem. The foreign law also threatens the constitutional status of Northern Ireland, which isn't actually true because the courts have it's gone through the courts and they've said yes, the agreement that created Northern Ireland, about the goods and things like that going into Northern Ireland has been changed through a new Act of Parliament. That's what's happened here. So that's it pretty much. An Act of Parliament can repeal or change a previous Act of Parliament. Otherwise you'd have absolute chaos. He talks about the Articles of Union of 1800s between GB and NI stipulated that should be no customs duties or prohibitions on goods crossing the Irish Sea in either direction, and that subjects on both sides of the Irish Sea in all treaties with foreign powers shall have the same privileges. But the thing is, the Northern Ireland Protocol changes that because it's an Act of Parliament, you see. The Alistair case, the Unionist-supported legal challenge against the protocol, has, at least so far, failed in strict legal terms, which is important. They're arguing it's failed in strict legal terms, but that's what this is. These are laws, so obviously it's going to fail in legal terms because it's going through lawyers, it's going through barristers, it's going through the courts. Not hard to figure out, guys, but only because the Northern Ireland Court of Appeal ruled that the Articles of Union have been successfully subjugated by the 2020 Act of Parliament, which gave effect in UK law to the EU Withdrawal Agreement and Protocol. So you got it, you figured it out in blue. There's your answer. One Act of Parliament has changed another Act of Parliament from like 200 years ago. That's how the world works. One act can repeal another one. Otherwise you'd have endless problems. Like, we can't get rid of slavery. Why? Because it was an Act of Parliament. We can't change those. Do you realise how stupid you guys are? The government has so far mitigated some of the worst effects of the protocol through their unilateral actions, while seeking, which happened. The EU have been fairly okay with it for the most part. If they weren't, they would have continued legal action. They've been doing this while seeking to negotiate with the EU to minimise the checks on goods which cross the Irish Sea from Great Britain, which is fine, but we're trying to get an agreement on something we've already agreed on. It doesn't make sense, especially when you read this damning article, which we'll go through at some point. This is why it is heartening to hear reports that the government is preparing a bill which would get rid of the protocol. It's not going to happen. Such a bill is long overdue. No, it's not. It would replace it with arrangements which control the movement of goods across the open Irish land border. It doesn't make any sense. How do you, regulate goods going through an open border? Because if you're checking them as they go across the border, that is a de facto hard border, because things are being enforced as they go across. This bit in purple doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. You can't, for an open border to work, you don't have checks. If there are checks, it's a closed border or a hard border. So again, these Telegraph writers, it's like they don't understand what they're talking about. They don't live in reality, like the good people in the audience do. It's painful. It really is. But yeah, this sentence here. The bill would replace the Northern Ireland Protocol with arrangements which control the movement of goods across the open Irish border. The reason they're saying this is because they don't want to violate the Good Friday Agreement, and they're trying to phrase it in a way that looks like it protects the Good Friday Agreement but doesn't. A key element of such arrangements would be a system of so-called mutual enforcement. The UK would impose a legal requirement on businesses who choose to export goods across the Irish land border to pay any EU customs duties which become due to comply with EU laws, and Ireland and the EU would do the same. But it doesn't make sense because you pay that once you're entering another country's border, right? That's when all the customs are meant to be paid and things like that. And these companies will just lie. They'll say, oh, we're going to Northern Ireland. Then they'll put the goods into Ireland, and they'll do that because they don't want to pay the customs duties. The EU companies will do the same. Like, bro, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense, honestly. This doesn't make sense because they're just gonna lie. Companies gonna lie because they want to avoid the tax. And if no one's monitoring properly, especially not on our side, it's going to lead to chaos, especially when we don't want to give the data of goods going between GB and NI anyways. Publishing the bill will change the dynamics of negotiating with the EU. At present, the EU can simply reject any changes to the protocol, knowing that it is embedded into UK law, and ministers do not have the power to change it, which is ironic, isn't it? That the UK voted to accept these things, right? And the EU know we've accepted these things, and that somehow makes the EU super powerful, that we've put something into UK law. Do you see the gymnastics these people have to play? Oh yeah, the EU know we can't do anything because we've already accepted these terms. Yes, that's how an agreement works. If I buy a house for 300,000, I can't later go to the bank and say, "Oh, nice one, I'm only going to pay 200k." It's not going to work. That's what these people are trying to do. The EU would understand that once the bill becomes law, they would lose the power to continue to impose the protocol. No, mate. What's going to happen is bits of the TCA are going to get taken out, or it's going to go to court and bits of the TCA will get taken out. That's what will happen here. We're playing a very dangerous game. So the idea that passing this bill would solve everything wouldn't make sense, because we would have done so by now. And in fact, we did try with the internal market bill. So again, another void point here. If this guy was a tennis player, he'd be hitting the ball straight into the net from serve. The usual suspects will claim that such a bill would breach the UK's international obligations, which is absolutely 100% correct. This will breach international law, but he says, but the EU has obligations too, including arguably under Article 13 of the protocol, to consider and agree in good faith changes to the protocol which protect the Good Friday Agreement. But these aren't changes in good faith though. These are things the government knew would always happen and decided to implement them anyways, purely because what they wanted to do was get through Brexit, get Brexit done, essentially, get us out of the EU, by hook or by crook, right? And then renegotiate the protocol. That was their plan all along. So they're not negotiating in good faith. This current government cannot negotiate in good faith because that was always the setup. A new government with a new mandate could, but this current government can't, because they're the ones who signed up to the Northern Ireland Protocol, won the general election on the back of it, and then said, do you know what, we're going to change the protocol. Makes no sense. It cannot be good enough for the EU to simply reject all the changes under a what we hold mentality. But the thing is, if it was the other way around, the UK would do the exact same thing, because once you have an agreement in place, you cannot really change it. You can make tweaks to it if the agreement allows it, but the simple fact is, we agreed to something. We can't change it now, unless the other side agree to it. That's the top and bottom of it. They talk about the Ukraine situation and the UK doing really well helping out with arms, but it doesn't mention the fact that we're crap with refugees. But honestly, this is just madness. This is absolute madness. But what do you expect from the Tory graph? Anyways, I'm gonna leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, support the channel on Patreon if you can, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.